ancient Jewish magic. And of course, already, you know, I get the most complicated topics. And seriously, when you think about it, because right from the get-go, we have the word magic, and you hear the word magic, and it has all these different connotations.
Yes, so
And
I had to.
I didn't know. Oh,
and the problem is,
No, you didn't.
Okay,
sorry.
everybody, please mute yourself.
Okay, so and the difficulty is that the word magic in and of itself is problematic. So when I say ancient Jewish magic, it's like, what do I mean by that? Because that's not a Hebrew word. So they would not have used the word magic whatsoever. In fact, they have certain words they will use, which we will go over in a few moments. But I want to make it very clear that in many ancient cultures, you have the idea of those people who are doing actions of manipulation, and that's considered not good. And then you have those, the idea that they're doing actions that are in connection with permission from a deity or a god, and that's considered good. So the problem is that you have the magic and the miracle kind of duality, so it's hard to kind of dive into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the word magic. We're going to use it loosely at first until we dive deeper into this topic. For example, I want to make it very clear again that the word magic, magos, it derives originally from Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism has a group of people who do ritual actions at the very top, and they're known as magi. Oh, you're getting this, right? And then as this word magic, magos, enters into the West, it is applied to ritual actions that are considered exotica, very unusual. And so it will creep into, for example, the belief system connected to Artemis of the Ephesians and Anatolian magic, because that's exotic for the Greeks as well as the Romans, right? And then eventually it will be embraced, but it takes a long time. And so we have to be careful with this term. So let's jump in. So according to Rabbi Jeffrey Dennis, he says that both the Bible and Jewish mysticism emphasize that God created the universe by means of a series of speech acts, right? Humanity is the only one of God's mortal creations, power of speech, implying that our words can, under certain conditions, have the same constructive and destructive power. Right? So the power of words, the word is given, the word is said. God spoke, let there be light, and there was light. The word created that light, right? Or the belief is, right? You have also even the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. And the Word creates, it's a creative principle, but it's the spoken word. It's the word that is uttered. You also have that in Egyptian beliefs, right? You have this creative aspect that comes about, by the use of words, sounds, utterances create things. Well, you can see that deep within Jewish tradition, then words are considered to have power, right? They have power. They move things, they shift things, they change things. Well, and then the Hebrew Bible stresses the fact that the name of God itself, Yahweh. So obviously I'm not Jewish, I just said the word, right? Yahweh and others, right? those words for God have power in and of itself. If you say these words, so holy was the word, the name of God, that if you're writing, if you are a scribe and you are copying down the Bible, right? And you're writing, of course, obviously, going from right to left, right? And you're saying it out loud. When you get to the name of God, what do? You don't say that name. You say Adonai, right? And then you keep going. And sometimes you leave a blank space because that word is considered so holy. So now you got an interesting situation, because now in Jewish tradition, if you say God creates by the power of words, and then the names of God have power in and of itself. So if you say these names, things happen. And then you take the next step, and the Hebrew Bible even stresses that the letters, the Hebrew letters, have power. Well, now you got another source, right? So you can see where those within Judaism, ancient Judaism, will go, well, wait a minute. And if God gives us, God did this, he created through these words, his words are holy, and the alphabet is holy, then maybe, just maybe, he can work through us in that empowerment to create things, to change things. It doesn't take too much of a leap to go from one to the other, right? It doesn't, right? So, and at first you're going to have a prophet would say, hey, I have this power, Elijah, right? Elisha, right? They'll say it, and it is so. And then priests will say, well, we have this power. Maybe a king will think we have this power. And it goes down to the common person. And as opposed to big, bold acts, it becomes more mundane acts, like fertility, making sure the harvest is going to go well, right? Making sure that your neighbor is not looking over the fence at you, right? But all of a sudden, it moves into the more mundane sense of everyday life. It really isn't that mysterious that magical ideas within Judaism are inherently there, and yet you have these supposed restrictions against magic, or kishuf, right? Kishuf, which is kind of the magic or sorcery word that is used in Hebrew, oftentimes denoting the darker form of magic. Because the interesting part is, if you're doing a lighter kind of magic, it's not manipulation. It's just that you're working with God, right? God is working through you, and you're doing this. So it's okay for you to do these utterances, and besides that, by doing these utterances, you're saying the holy words of God, and that's in the Torah, and that's memorize it too. So it's magical. So you're having these perspectives within Judaism. So we get to these references to magic in the Hebrew Bible. It can get vague. Now, in Exodus 22:18 or 17, some have it as 17, some have it as 18. Just kind of throwing that one out there. But there's this famous line that you hear too often, and it is, suffer not a witch to live. You've heard this before. And I can't talk about magic and ancient Judaism without addressing this particular issue. So what does it really say? Does it really say suffer or permit not a witch to live? And the answer is no, it doesn't say that at all. It never said that. And people know that. Shame on them. Okay, so the word, of course, is it's kind of a longer word. It's mikashefa. Mikashefa has at its root kashif. And kashif, what does this mean? Well, this people say sorceress or witch. It really doesn't mean that. If you take a look at the word, its root can actually mean to mutter or to hum, as the hum of insects or the sound of wind going through the trees, right? It's a compound word because you have the word kash. So you got kash, and you got the idea of the muttering. The kash can mean herb. And so you put it together and you got kash hapala. Herb using. Hey, there it is. So suffer not a herb user to live? Strange. Herb user. What does that mean? Herb user. Maybe that too, right? So what right does that mean? Herb user. Here's the problem with Hebrew. If you're Jewish, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is, it's context driven. Now, if you don't know the context, it's difficult to understand exactly what it says. You got to know the context. And you know who best to know the context? Well, if you're Jewish and you're living near that time, that would be a good context. What do you think? So what happened is the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, is translated into Greek. It's translated into Greek, and it's translated during the time of either Ptolemy the First or Ptolemy the Second, right? So you're getting this 3rd century BCE feel to it, right? And the story is, of course, you have 70 or 71 or 72 Jewish scribes put into 70 or 71 or 72 separate rooms, and each have a copy of the Torah with them. And they all copy it from Hebrew into Greek. Well, they come back, and it's a miracle. They all match. And so the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, I want to make this very clear, is absolutely 100% authoritative for Jews in the 3rd, 2nd, 1st centuries BCE, 1st and 2nd into the 3rd century CE. Absolutely authoritative. How absolutely? So absolutely that those who are Hellenistic Jews or Jews who know Greek will quote from it. Did you guys know the majority of the time that the New Testament, both to the Old Testament, is from a Septuagint, the Greek form? So if you come from a perspective of New Testament being inspired, you have no choice but to agree the Septuagint is inspired as well. Does that make sense? Because that's the version they're using. They're not using the Hebrew version. And Greek is, because it's more specific. It's more specific. When it translates that section, Greek, for every one Hebrew word, you're going to have 3 or 4 Greek words, right? Really specific. Just like English, for every English word, you're going to have 3 or 4 or 7 or 8 or 9 Greek words. I'm sorry. English is terrible. Okay, anyway, moving right along. So what happens is, look at the section. How does it translate the word that is suffer not a witch to live, right? It is, the word, of course, is pharmakia. Pharmakia. We're back to, and how is it understood in this context? It's understood as a poisoner, somebody that mixes herbs in a poisonous way. So what it is, it's suffer not a poisoner to live. Got it? Well, I get that. If you're out there in the desert and somebody's poisoning your wells, I don't think you're going to be too happy about it. This kind of makes sense, right? But it hasn't have anything to do with witchcraft as you know it. Is this okay? You guys getting this? Right? There's no connection at all. And we know better because because what happens is this word goes into Latin, right? And when it goes into Latin, they don't even translate it that way. They translate it as maleficius, which is even more broad. Maleficius literally means evildoer. Maybe if you're familiar with the Malice Maleficarum, right? Malice, the hammer of witches. By the way, that doesn't say hammer of witches. It just says hammer of evildoers. The word witch is not in there. In fact, I'm going to go. Why not just get on my podium a little bit here? The word witch is an English word. In continental Europe, it's never used. Not used, right? I mean, if you're German, it's it's hexa, right? If you're French, it's what's saucier, right? If it's Dutch, it's hex, right? Hicka, Swedish. If it's Polish, it's I think it's Zarawika. If it's Romanian, Vrajuter, it's not. People use the word. It's not used. So when people talk about the witchcraft trials in continental Europe, no, these are evildoer trials that does involve lots of women. That's true. That doesn't erode away from that concept, but it's still right. It's still evildoers. Which is an idea that comes about, and even though you have the Great Bible, it really is popularized by the King James Bible and by King James the First. He's the one who, at the Hartford Conference, he's the one, and the other Puritans that were there were the ones that put this witch word in there, and it doesn't really belong there at all, any witch-wise. Okay, is this helpful? Okay, so again, I think I took care of the question quite a bit, maybe too much. So let's keep on going. So we're going, all right, so Dr. Rietveld, is there more? Yes, let's go into Deuteronomy 18:11 through 12. In Deuteronomy 18:11 through 12, I'm going to give you the translation that is used in a popular sense, and then I'm going to go through what it really says. Okay, so hold on. So it says here, there shall not be found. This is Deuteronomy 18:11 through 12. There shall not be found amongst you anyone that makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, use divination, a soothsayer. Some of your translators will say a witchcraft, or an enchanter. Sometimes you see interpreter of omens, or a sorcerer, or a charmer. Sometimes they use the word caster of spells, or one that consults a ghost. Sometimes they'll use the word medium, or a familiar spirit. Maybe sometimes they use the word spiritist, or a necromancer. Necromancer, of course, is somebody who raises us from the dead. Anyone who does these things are detestable to the Lord, and because of these detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive you out of the nations before you. Okay, so that's you've heard this before. Okay, so we read this and we think, okay, so this is definite evidence that ancient Judaism is not all for magic. Guess what? They messed up. Now, my father, he was one of the translators of the New American Standard Bible. I grew up in the home of a Bible translator. So I'll tell you what these words really mean. Okay, so the word soothsayer, I'm looking at this word, and it says, sometimes it says practices witchcraft. And the word actually relates to the hum of insects, the sound of wind in the trees, and refers to the sound that was used to automatically bring power to one who is invoking, as if the sound in and of itself can bring about the magical act, the sound. So this is actually not against, this has nothing to do with a soothsayer. In fact, it's not even close to the idea of a soothsayer. Where are they getting this? Bad translators. Shame on you. So what does it mean? Well, it means that it's somebody that is a magical hummer, somebody that is making sounds and is causing things. And according to Jewish perspectives, they should be words that mean something, right? So not just sounds. Sounds in and of itself. Remember, I just told you about the idea that the name of God, the letters, let there be light. So words need to say something. So it's a criticism of this kind of pagan practice, but it's not a criticism of magic per se. Okay, you ready for the next one? I'm going through this. I'm sorry. Hope you don't mind. I love going through. Enchanter. Well, what this means is that it literally refers to the murmur of an obscure incantation, very close to the other word, but it's the idea of automatically calling up divine power. But but also it's the idea of focusing on just the words themselves. That's kind of the meaning. The word sorcerer in this passage doesn't mean that at all either. It means one who cuts things up. I don't know where you get a sorcerer from somebody who cuts things up. Last I checked, there's no connection. And so it means the idea of cutting things up, shredding things, maybe up for a magical potion, cutting, but there's another definition that one scholar mentioned, and that is it's not cutting up herbs, it's cutting yourself. And what happened in ancient days is they used to have something called bloodletting. So the mistranslation in the Exodus 22:18. Deuteronomy, I apologize. Deuteronomy 18:11-12. The mistranslation, right, of the word sorcerer, right? It doesn't mean sorcerer. It means a person who cuts up or cuts. That's what it means. So the word sorcerer is an English word. It doesn't apply to the meaning. And it refers to people who do ritual cutting, bloodletting. So what happened is that the deity is not listening to them. What they start to do is they cut themselves and they put their own blood on the altar. Does that make sense? You guys got that? So it's saying, well, we don't want that to happen. The next word in Deuteronomy says charmer, maybe one who casts spells. Once again, this is more manipulative magic as opposed to theurgy. And of course, finally, we get to the word, the medium that we use in this passage. And the word actually is a ventriloquist, the idea of making something else talk through you. So that's the meaning there. So as we look through this, this is again the passage from Deuteronomy 18:11-12. And it turns out, except for the word necromancer or familiar spirit, every single one of those words are mistranslated. You guys hear that? Every single one of those words are mistranslated. If you're Jewish, you already know this. If you read Hebrew, does that make sense? But if you're not, I just want to give you a wake-up call that your translators are influencing what you're reading. Any questions? Does that make sense? So every one of those words, again, except for the latter part, the necromancer, which is raising, obviously the dead, and familiar spirits, those are mistranslations. Okay, so let's go into
which.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was wondering which word are you translating as, or which word is supposedly mistranslated as sorcerer? Because my understanding is mechashef. Or which one are you mistranslated as a bloodletter?
Yeah, okay. Oh, no, that's a different word. They're not using the word chef for that word. They're using another word for sorcerer. I know what you're saying. And they're conflating the one from Exodus 22:18, that word which is, of course, mechashef. And they're not, that word is not in the other passage.
But yeah. Mechashef is in the Deuteronomy,
right? But
11,
not in that passage. Not that word. It's the earlier one. Yeah. So
which one?
Well, no, it is a sorcerer one, but it goes into the idea of okay. So we'll go through this. Actually, let's see. So we go through this, and we have passed through the fire, uses divination, a soothsayer, and
Which
they
is which
understand
word?
that as practice of witchcraft. But that was what I was translating earlier. Does that make sense? So they confused.
Me'ona,
Right,
me'onain?
right. So what they did is in the English translation, they switched soothsayer with sorcerer in your English translation. They switched it. Does that make sense?
Okay,
So it doesn't make
kind
any
of.
sense. Well, it doesn't make any sense for those who are reading in Hebrew, and that's what I'm saying. It's a misappropriation of words. So they switch them, but it is the same word that we went through in Exodus 22:18. Yeah, so we're in good stead with that. Does that make sense? They switch it around for your translation, and they switch the word sorcerer for soothsayer and soothsayer for sorcerer in the passage.
Okay.
Is that helpful? No, thank you for asking the question, because that clarifies it for other people too. So keep it up. Thank you. All right. So here we go. So we're moving right along. And by the way, medium could mean petrolicus as well. Now, there are passages that imply the use of what we understand as magical activities. For example, according to Genesis, Joseph plants a silver drinking cup in Benjamin's pouch to use as an excuse to call him back. He says specifically, put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest and his money for the gain. And he did as Joseph had told him. And so when they had just gone out of the city and were not far off, when Joseph said to his house steward, up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid evil for evil? Joseph's household manager refers to a silver drinking cup as follows. He says, isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also used for divination? This is a wicked thing that you have done. Later, Joseph accuses his brother of stealing the cup, saying that such a man as I can certainly divine the identity of the thieves. And so there's this idea that, once again, of divination, even there. So these passages show that Joseph, is engaged in scrying, right? This is an ancient occult method of divination in which a cup or other vessel is filled with water and gazed into. Now, this is really important to remember, because those in ancient Judaism did read this passage, and this was a practice that we'll see was used in Jewish magic, not only in the 1st or 2nd or 3rd centuries, but even moves into Jewish magic during the Middle Ages, and referring to this custom. So this is creating a precedent. And so this is okay, right? So this is considered good magic, it's divine magic, and therefore it's not negative, right? So then we move on to Numbers 5:12-31. It describes a ritual performed by a priest to decipher whether a woman committed adultery or not. Now, this is a really tough passage for me to go through. Verse 17 says, then he shall take some holy water in a clay jar and put some dust from the tabernacle floor into the water. She and her husband would go then with an offering of barley meal to the tabernacle. The priest would make a drink consisting of holy water and sweepings from the tabernacle floor. The woman then drank the water as the priest recited what it seems to be a curse upon her. The curse would state that her abdomen would swell and her thigh waste away if she had committed adultery. You heard me right? Otherwise, the curse would have no effect. If she was pregnant at the time, the curse would certainly induce an abortion, right? And nobody seems to have been concerned about the fate of any embryo or fetus at this point, right? But this is a magical test. And yet there's no magical test for men if they committed adultery in this sense. So it's like, okay, well, this is interesting. And then many physical objects mentioned in the Hebrew Bible appear to be used magically. And again, who is saying that they're being used magically? But again, I'm going to say It is Jews living during the Greek and especially Hellenistic, I should say, in the Roman period and going into the Middle Ages. So I'm getting this information from them, their perspectives. So here we go. Many physical objects, including what's called the Urim and the Thummim, Urim, and then Thummim. These are objects that were mentioned in Numbers 27:21 and 1 Samuel 28:6, the Hebrew scriptures. They were apparently devices. Some people say they were flat stones that the high priest consulted to determine the will of God. So there's an object, these stones are being consulted to see what God wants. But this is an in-between way to decipher that perspective. Some people said that, it may have acted like a pair of dice. It's interesting because the Urim, we find mentioned in Assyrian and Babylonian literature that, in fact, there's a tablet, I think it's called the Tablet of Destiny, where it is said that this stone, whatever it is, was on the breastplate of the priest as he mediated between God and the worshipers and others. I think it's very interesting because according to the book of Exodus, when it mentions the high priest vestments, as well as rabbinic writings and the Talmud, right? The Urim and Thummim were said to be, were in a sense said to be connected to the priest, the high priest vestments as well. So I think it's interesting. It's like, so there is a correlation there. The Urim and the Thummim were also permitted for determining land distribution, and when they needed to check on this, and permission for other kinds of situations like what goes on in the temple duties, and so forth. So there you have that. And then, of course, there's a lot of pieces of wood or stone with markings that were used to determine what God wanted, which were used in a similar way as dice, like Numbers 26:55 states, "Be sure that the land is distributed by lot. What each group inherits will be according to the names of the ancestral tribe," and so forth. Casting a lot settles disputes and keeps strong opponents apart, Proverbs 18:18, and so forth. The Hebrew Bible even refers to the power of curses. For example, while the prophet Elisha, and this is on his way back to Bethel, some boys came out of the city and they made fun of him because he had a lack of hair on his head. So, and they called him Baldy, basically. In response, Elisha cursed the children in the name of God. I don't know why you would do that. I mean, apparently 2 bears appeared, prompted by God, and came out of the forest and tore up 42 of the boys to shreds. It's 42 boys. Kind of have problems with that, right? So there you have that. And the book of Job. The book of Job declares, so here we go. Can you bind the cluster of the Pleiades or loose the belt of Orion? Can you bring out Meseroth in its seasons, or can you guide the great bear with its cub? Do you know the ordinances of heaven? Can you set their dominion over the earth? This is Job 38:31-33. The word Meseroth, translated literally means a garland of crowns. It is basically the ancient Hebrew name for the signs of the zodiac. That's right, meaning the circle of animals, right? A surrounding belt of 12 constellations, by which, of course, ancient humanity divided up the year into months and other arrangements. So you have this astrology reference, and can we know, or can we perceive, enact or interact with these stars? In fact, according to Genesis, this zodiac was to be read for specific signs. Where is that said? Genesis 1:14, it says, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years." Signs and seasons, signs, right? Daniel, the great prophet, was employed for many years in Babylon as the chief of, what was his position, right? He was the supervisor of what? They'll translate it as the magicians, right? The astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. As we know from Daniel 5:11, there is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In the time of your fathers, he was found to have the insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. Your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. And then there are the Jewish holidays, where practices appear that seem to connect with the very overt magical acts. Now, many of you who know me know that I have associations with Corrie ten Boom, who's a Holocaust survivor. And when it came to the time of Christmas, uh, it started a little earlier. We had, of course, the menorah as well as the Christmas tree, because we celebrated both the holidays, Hanukkah and Christmas. And we had, of course, many Jewish friends, but we also had a chance to celebrate other Jewish holidays. So I was always curious about some of them. And let's go to this. Yom Kippur, for example, commemorates the arrival of the second set of the Ten Commandments. Because, the first set was destroyed by Moses. He was a little upset because they're worshiping the golden calf. And so he went back up. This is the Day of Atonement. This is like Easter for if you're Jewish. Everybody shows up that day. Say, hey, we haven't seen you all year. Anyway, so what happens here is that there's one curious ritual, and that's what's called the kapara, expiation. This is kind of a thurgic ritual performed on the eve of Yom Kippur. And this is not done so often, but it used to be done more often. And what happens here is that it is said that Jews, if you're Jewish, will transfer your sins to a bird by waving it around your head 3 times while saying, "This bird is my substitute, my surrogate, my atonement. This bird shall meet death, but I will have a long and pleasant life of peace." And the bird, usually a chicken, is slaughtered and given to the poor. But is this magical? I mean, what is this, right? You're using, if you understand magic as magic, this could be understood as a ritual that connects to these ideas. Another holiday is kind of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's Sukkot, right? The Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles, right? And this one, basically, this is a commemoration. It's kind of a how do I say this? It's a fertility ritual, but it also commemorates the time of the Israelites' sojourn in the wilderness, right? But it very much connects to fertility. And what happens is you have something known as the 4 species. They are the Lilith. The Lilith, these are basically, sorry, it was 4 species. First of all, you do have the Lilith. The Lilith, Lulav. Basically, this is a fronds from a date palm. So Lulav is a frond from a date palm. The next thing you have is a hadas. The hadas is sprigs of myrtle. And then you have an arava. This is basically willow branches, and it has leaves on it. And then finally, you have the etrog, which are yellow citrons. I do find it interesting that when it mentions the species, for example, in Leviticus 23:40, and some other places, they only mention the first 3. But the etrog citrons are used. And what you do is that you bind these 4 species together. You put them all together. And then what happens is that every day during Sukkot, right, a special blessing is recited over the 4 species and afterwards. And they're carried around in a procession. But they are ritually waved in the 6 distinct directions while all chant a prayer for deliverance. They're ritually waved in 6 distinct directions. And what I think is interesting about this is that all 4 species have direct water associations. For the date palm, the lulav, right, flourishing in valleys and regions that have abundant water, right? And then you have, of course, the hadas, the arava, only thrive near sources of water. Finally, the etrog, which does grow in very dry Israel, actually demands more water than all the other fruit trees put together, right? Or it won't survive. These are basically water guzzlers. So why in the world are you taking 4 water guzzlers and you're putting them in the various directions, right? Why are you doing that? And of course, we know from other cultures, contemporaneous and after that, is that this was to attract water. This was attract rain. And so it is a rain ritual that ends up becoming a part of the Jewish tradition. But there's also what's called the Ushpizm ritual at Sukkot. This is where you welcome the spirits of the ancestors. Like what? Ushpizim. And this was very popular, especially, of course, during the Middle Ages. In the 13th century, of course, the mystical Sefer Huzar, right, the Book of Splendor says, when you sit in the sukkah, when you sit in the tent, the canopy of faith, the Shekinah, the divine presence, spreads her wings over you. And the Ushpizim, or the righteous guest, join you as well. Rejoice each and every day of the festival together with those honored guests, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, and David. So you get visitors. What's that about? Why do you have visitors? And there's also female visitors. You got Sarah, Miriam, Deborah, Anna, Abigail, Huda, Esther, right? And later on, they will actually pair up these ancestors with the Sephirot, the various branches of the tree of life in the model there. So, which I think is fascinating. In fact, each of the 6 directional dimensions has different ancestors and qualities associated with it. So it becomes even more complex. So you're not only connecting to fertility, you're connecting with the spirits of these ancestors coming from the past, right? Now, because references to magical practices per se were not directly forbidden if the Hebrew Bible was interpreted via the Septuagint, there is an overwhelming evidence that Jews during the late Second Temple period, all the way into the 3rd, 4th, and 5th centuries, practiced magic within various communities. And we're going to talk about them right now. Here we go. Oh, we have a lot. Oh, maybe too much. Okay. One of the first Jewish miracle workers, his name was Honi Ha-Me'agel from the 1st century BCE. He had a penchant for standing in the middle of a circle while he called down rain from heaven. In fact, he did this a lot, and he got the reputation of being called the circle drawer. So he does create a magical circle. And one time he drew one of these circles and, in the dust, and he stood inside it, and he formed God that he's not going to move until it rains. Well, it began to drizzle. And Honi said that, well, he's not satisfied. I want more rain. start pouring rain. No, that's too much. I need less. And then after that, there was calm rain. Well, many disapproved and thought maybe he needs to be go through Terem. He needs to be excommunicated because he dishonored God. But Simon ben Shittah, the brother of Queen Shulamizim, excused him. He said that he had this very special relationship with God. So that which would seem to be taboo, that which seems to be forbidden, he could do. This is going to happen a lot in Jewish thought, where, magic, you're not supposed to do it, but if you are really holy, then you can do it. That's not magical. It's a miracle, and it's okay. So it depends on how forward you are about it. And we'll run into this again. Stories of Jewish magicians are very common in ancient times, very common. There's one story that's in the New Testament of a certain Optimus. He was from Cyprus originally, and he worked for the procurator by the name of Felix at Caesarea Maritima. Felix was there between 52 to 60 CE. According to Josephus, who was a Jewish historian, Felix used his magical skills to try to convince Drusilla, the sister of Herod Agrippa II, to divorce her husband Asius of the Amason dynasty and to marry him instead. Well, I guess Felix deserves his name. Felix, of course, means lucky. And he was indeed lucky because apparently he did indeed win the hand of Drusilla. So apparently the magic of Thomas worked. There you have it. Of course, there's another famous Jewish magician or exorcist. His name is Eliezer, who once exorcised demons before the Roman emperor by the name of Vespasian. So in fact, he recited various incantations, and incantations, this is important, that does refer to Solomon. So we have the beginning of Solomonic magic being mentioned in ancient sources, which we'll run into pretty quickly, because of course we're going to have the Testament of Solomon. The Testament of Solomon, it does date from the 1st to the 3rd century CE, and it refers to various magical practices. Story goes, old King Solomon finds a demon draining the soul out of a boy. And this boy was inspiring his workers as they were building the Temple of Jerusalem. And so Solomon, he prays to God for help. And in fact, when he prays for help, he receives a magic ring with the seal of God. And he receives it from the Archangel Michael. And this ring has the power to force demons to do his bidding. It goes, now when Solomon heard this, I entered the temple of God and prayed with all my soul night and day that the demon might be delivered into my hands and that I might gain authority over him. And it came about that through my prayer that grace was given to me from the Lord Sabaoth by Michael his archangel. He brought me a little ring having a seal consisting of an engraved stone, and said to me, take, O Solomon, king, son of David, the gift which the Lord God has sent thee, highest Sabaoth, and with thou shalt lock up all demons of the earth, male and female, and with their help thou shalt build up Jerusalem. But thou must wear the seal of God, and this engraving of the seal of the ring sent thee in the pentalpha. So there you have it. So now this is from all intents, this is a magic ring, right? Given to Solomon to enact in charge of the demons to create the great temple, right? Taking a look at this, He was resourceful. Solomon proceeds to compel demons to help him build the temple via his magical seal ring. One of the most curious contexts for what's called the Ephesian letters, connected to Artemis of the Ephesians, is actually to be discovered in the Testament of Solomon. Now, the Ephesian letters were considered some of the most magical words of ancient times. As they're aske, kapiske, lix, tetrax, tendemenos, papusia. These words were almost like the abracadabra at that time. Well, it's fascinating because two of these words wind up in the Testament of Solomon, and that is lix tetrax. And it's this lix tetrax is actually described as a demon, having his face on the air high above, and the remaining part of his body crawling along like a little snail. And after spitting on the ground, the king seals him with the ring of God, followed by asking for the demon's name. And so this is the idea that if you get the demon's name, you have power over it. The demon said to me, I am called Lix Tetrax. I said to it, what is your work? And it said to me, I scatter men and make whirlwinds, and I set fires, and I burn fields, and kindle houses. I have this work more in the summer. If I find the opportunity, I get under the corners of roofs night and day, and I am the skin of the greatest. And so what he does is that he has power over Lix Tetrax. He says the name over it. You're going to have other references to, by the way, Lix Tetrax is said to reside on a star located towards the very tip of the horn of the moon, which is found in the south. And so in the end, of course, Lix Tetrax picks up stones and builds the temple. You have another word. It's called the Sword of Moses. The Sword of Moses originated in the first 4 centuries CE. So it's pretty early, right, during the Roman era. And it opens with a description of the heavenly realms and angels, and then moves on to prayers and invocations and ritual procedures. It is an interesting source. And 4 angels are appointed to the sword given by the Lord. Now, I'm not going to go through every bit of this text, but what happens is that certain names are given. I'm not going to say the names. And you know these names, they have power. And these names are connected to the mysteries of God. And they are appointed to thousands of thousands and to myriads of thousands of chariots, ready to do the will of their creator. And so if you have these names, then you have the power of God to do things. Is this magic? Or is this 30, right? What is this, right? Now, upon every amulet, you're supposed to write on something about the sword, and you're supposed to write as follows. So every amulet that you write from the sword, you write this first. You write, in the name of the Lord of all the holy ones, may the sword be effectual to do my services, and may the Lord, if it approach to serve me, and may all these powers be delivered over to me so that I am able to use them. And they were delivered to Moses, the son of Aaron, perfect from his God, and no harm befalling him. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of words to write. I'm trying to think to myself, how are you going to fit that on an amulet? You're going to write really small, or you're going to have some way of abbreviation, shorthand. And I am half joking, I'm half not, because there was a sense of shorthand at that time. So yeah, there is a reality there where you just write the first couple letters and people know what it means. Now, if he will not, reading this course, if he will not act accordingly, the angel of wrath, ire, fury, and rage will come near him to minister to him, and they will lord over him and strangle him and plague him over it. So basically, you got to be very careful when you use these names, or bad things are going to happen to you. I'm also reading, if at a full moon you wish to seize or to blind a man and a woman so that they will be with each other, and to annul spirits and blast demons and Satans, and to bind the both, and to free a man from prison, and for everything, write on a red plate, and it gives you certain words you're supposed to write in order to accomplish that. You know, I don't know. It looks to me that the source seems a little dark. Is it me? I'm going through this. I'm going, I don't know. Yeah, bind the boat, bind the man. I don't know. Oh, how about this one? If you wish to destroy high mountains and to pass in safety through the sea and to the land, and to go down into the fire and come up, and to remove kings, and to cause an optical illusion, and to stop up a mouth, and to converse with the dead, and to kill the living, and to bring down and raise up and endure angels to abide by you, and to learn from all the secrets of the world, write on a silver plate, and put it in it a root of Artemisia and then it gives you the magic words. Once again, I think this is a little dark. And I mean, to kill somebody? So you're moving into a place. Yes, I'll go ahead and give you the source one more time. It's called Sword of Moses, and it's written during the first 4 centuries. And I don't know. I'm having some problems here, right? So you can see, there's another magical work that's known as the Sefer HaRism. The Sefer HaRism, S-E-P-H-E-R, A-H-A, Rism, R-A-Z-I-M. Obviously, it's not canonical in Judaism, because we're talking about Jewish popular magical practices. So, yeah, I know. But this is part of the popular belief systems going on that time. Do continue for a very long time, and in some places continue still. So the Sefer is basically this is the book of mysteries that dates either to the late 3rd century or the early 4th century CE, and connects to the Egyptian Jewish scribal community. Although so there are 2 different types of documents here. The first is cosmological framework, which shows a similarity to some of the Hekaloth literature. The second is a collection of unrelated materials that reminds me of the Greek magical papyri. It begins as follows. It says, this is a book for the book of the mysteries, which was given to Noah and by Raziel the angel. And Noah inscribed upon a sapphire stone very distinctly, and he learned from it how to do wondrous deeds, and he learned secrets of knowledge and categories of understanding and thoughts of humility and concepts of counsel, and how to master the investigation of the strata of the heavens, to go about in all that is in their 7 abodes, to observe all the astrological signs, to examine the course of the sun, to explain the observations of the moon. He just goes on and on, right? And to rule over spirits and over demons, to send them wherever you wish, so that they will go like slaves. So this is another curious work that was circulated amongst Egyptian Jews within these various scribal circles. And so it goes through how to manipulate nature in its way. The name, I want to read a few of them. I'm not going to read them all. I want to give a few examples here. The name of the first firmament is called Shamayim. It says, within it are encampments filled with wrath, and 7 thrones are prepared there, and upon them are seated overseers, and around them on all sides encampments of angels are stationed and are obedient to men at the times when they practice magic, to everyone who has learned to stand and pour libations to their names and cite them by their signs at the period when prayer is heard, so as to make a magical rite succeed. Over all these encampments of angels, these 7 overseers rule to dispatch them for every sort of business so that they will hasten and bring success. So this is, so basically what will happen is it kind of tells you how to do these rituals. For example, here we go. If you wish to perform an act of healing, so if according to this source, if you wish to perform an act of healing, arise in the first or second hour of the night and take with you myrrh and frankincense. This is to be put on burning coals while saying the name of the angel who rules over the first encampment, who is called, and I won't say the name, and say there 7 times the name of the 72 angels who serve before him, and say as follows: I, your name, the son of your dad's name, beseech you that you will give me success in healing that person's name, the son of their father, and anyone for whom you ask, whether in writing or verbally, will be healed. Purify yourself from all impurity and cleanse your flesh from all carnality, and then you will succeed. This sounds like magic, right? This has a magical feel to it. Are you following me, right? Here's another one. This is, of course, from the angels of the second encampment, who are full of anger and wrath and are in charge of everything in connection to combat war, willing to torture and kill a person. Basically, in this one, of course, what will happen here is that if you want to go against your enemy or against your creditor or capsize a ship, yeah, if you guys want to capsize a ship, this is the spell for you. It's like, okay. Or fell a fortified wall, or against any business of your enemies, to damage and destroy, whether you desire to exile him or to make him bedridden, or to blind him or to maim him, or to grieve him in anything. I tell you, people can be harsh in those days. I don't know. You think people are bad now? Seriously. So how do you do that? I won't give you the whole formula. Basically, though, I'll tell you part of it. But it tells you how to do this. This is, again, ancient Jewish magic. It says, take water from 7 springs on the 7th day of the month, in the 7th hour of the day, and put it in 7 unfired pottery vessels, and do not mix them with one another. Expose them beneath the stars for 7 nights. So you guys got this? Take water. You have to walk around the 7 separate springs, right? And it has to be the 7th day of the month, right? The 7th hour of the day. I don't know how you're going to do that within an hour, because you're going to have to run between these 7 springs. Let's hope that they're near to one another. And you put the water in 7 unfired pottery vessels, and do not mix them with one another. Expose them beneath the stars for 7 nights, and on the 7th night, take out a glass vial and say over it the name of your adversary. And then pour the water from the 7 unfired pottery vessels into this vial. Then after that, you break the pottery vessels and throw the pieces to the east, the north, the west, and the south. So that's how you do it. I promise I give you specifics. How's that? That's maybe a little too specific, right? So this is how they did this during the first 4 centuries CE within amongst this community in Egypt. Again, this is a little bit dark, right? There's a few others. I don't want to give too many of them, but I do have to say this one because you want me to. If you wish to bind yourself to the heart of a great or wealthy woman, hey, so this is how you find a rich lady to bind yourself with. You guys ready for this one? This is how you do it. You take some perspiration from your face. Okay, all right, and put it in a new glass vessel. Then write on it, on a tin lamella, the name of the overseer and the names of the angels, and throw this in the midst of the flask, and say over the perspiration of your face, I adjure you, angels of favor and knowledge, that you will turn to me a heart of her name, the daughter of the Father, and let her do nothing without me, and let her heart be joined with my heart in love. Take then the new flask and bury it under her doorstep. Kind of creepy, right? And say, just as a woman will return to the infant of her womb, so this will return to me to love me from the day and forever. This should be, of course, written all in a full moon. So if there's a full moon, you're supposed to do all this and then kind of sneak on over and put it under her in her door area, right? So there you have it. And then, of course, finally, there are also the angels who obey you during the night. And if you wish to speak with the moon or the stars or to question the ghost or to speak with spirits. So how now did they talk with spirits? This book tells you how. You guys ready for this one? Okay, all right. All right. So this is how you do it. If you wish to, do it, what you do is you take a white bird and fine flour, slaughter the bird so that its blood is caught in the living water. You knead the flour with the water and blood and make 3 cakes and place them in the sun and write on them with the blood of the names of the angels of the 5th encampment and the names of its overseers, and put 3 of them on the table of myrtle wood. Let them stand facing the moon or facing the stars, and say, I adjure you to bring the planet of whatever or the spirit of whatever, and so forth and so on. So there you have it. And finally, if you just want to just get a ghost, I just want to get a ghost. We'll end with this one. How do you get a ghost? Well, what you do, according to the source, is stand facing the tomb and repeat the names of the angels of the 5th encampment while holding in your hand a new flask containing oil and honey mixed together, and you say as follows: I adjure you, O spirit of the ram bearer, who dwell amongst the graves upon the bones of the dead, that you will accept from my hand this offering and do my will and bring me the spirit of whoever that person's name, the son or the daughter of whoever the father is, who is dead. Raise him or her up so that he will speak or she will speak with me without fear and tell me true things without concealment. Let me not be afraid of him or her, and let him or her tell me for my question the answer I need for them. According to this, if you do this, they will appear immediately. So this is like a guaranteed thing. So I'm pretty confident. They will appear immediately. If he does not, repeat it a second and up to 3 times. When he appears, set a flask before him, and after this, speak your words while holding a twig of myrtle in your hands. If you wish to release him, strike him 3 times with the myrtle. Strike him 3 times with the myrtle, and pour out the oil and honey, and break the cup, and throw the myrtle from your hand, and return home by a different route. So you got to make sure, you got to count on the basis. So you got to whack with the myrtle, kind of break everything, and just run off into another direction. So there you have it. If you wish to speak with spirits, also go out to the place of the killed, whimpering way, and call out there in a sing-song voice. And so you're supposed to. This gives me a spell. which you're supposed to do in a sing-song like voice. And if you see opposite you a column of smoke, speak your words and send her for whatever purpose you wish. So there you have it. And then, oh, this is awful. I'm not sure if I want to tell you this one, but this is if you want to know when you're going to die. Okay, I know you guys want me to read this one. Okay, so if you want to know when you're going to die, basically they give you the names, and you don't get to know the year, but you get to know the month. And so if you wish to know which month you will be taken from the world, or what will occur in each and every month, or which month there will be rain, whether the grain will be plentiful, whether the olive tree will drop its fruit, or in which month kings will set forth to war, or which month there will be pestilence amongst men and cattle, or in which month an epidemic will fall amongst men, or whatever you wish to know, ask them and you will know. Okay, so what happens is what you're supposed to do is then say these words of the spirits of the fifth firmament. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 names, which I will not tell you. I don't want you doing that. That's bad. No, you don't want to know that. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, so that's from that source. That's a lot of material from that source. What do you think? Huh? Okay, let's keep going. I want to go a little bit over time, if you don't mind. Of course, evidence for Jewish magical papyri is everywhere to be found. So the Oxyrhynchus papyrus has one invocation that for a dog to bite someone. So Jewish magic to make a dog bite somebody. So there it is. It says by the eye Shimohaza, and then your dog goes off and attacks. There are also Jewish spells that are mixed with pagan elements. One of my favorites goes, "Hail Osiris, king of the underworld, lord of embalming, who is the source of Thinis, who gives answers in Abydos, who is under the Nob tree in Meroe, whose glory is in passion. Hail Athabat, bring Sabaoth to meal. Hail Adonai, great you, very valiant, bring Michael unto me, the mighty angel who is with God." So you got there a little Osiris, you got some Hebrew names, and heck, you even got Michael the archangel. Jewish magic used the Hebrew alphabet, the letters of which were considered very powerful to both pagans and Christians alike. So you see that kind of mixed in. In fact, many Greek and Roman magical papyri will say things like, "I exorcise you," in the Jewish language. So the pagan magical papyri will use Jewish words because they believe that these words are so holy, they can do amazing things, right? They can do magical works. Now, the Jewish magicians, too, use the holy name of God for their rituals. Sometimes rabbis even bless these amulets inscribed with verses from the Torah and endorse the use of names being invoked in various inscribed spells, as we know. We have found examples of Jewish amulets discovered at Aleppo. One of them stating, "Good amulet," on which is written the following: "Holy One amongst the great and amongst the saints, your name is holy, supreme God. Exalted my help, Lord Yah, Abba, Yah, Sado, God of heavenly aid, in the name of Agrith, in the reign of the moon, I adjure you by the rose and by the cold, by the fire and the clouds." But he also bears the names, which it shouldn't, of the names of Yahweh and Yah Shaddai and other deities as well. But you're going to have that. You also have lots of incantation bowls that were discovered, or demon bowls. These were often used by Jews of Israel as well as Mesopotamia in late antiquity, and are intended to protect the home. And these are covered with spells and other magical words to ward away evil, and written everything from Hebrew to Aramaic to Arabic. Most of them are curses, especially against demons, and these demons are oftentimes associated with illness, like the, evil eyes, or those people who are doing evil magic to you. They're also covered with names, various names for God, and magical circles and squares. They're usually written in a spiral pattern within the bowl, along with crude drawings. And so you have these incantation. So they kind of go, I've seen a few of these, and they literally spiral around. And in some cases, these bowls are made so you can kind of spin them, in order to do things. Interesting. And so these incantation bowls work in different ways. We find them, sometimes we find them buried under the threshold of various doorways. But when they are buried inverted. So the part where the bowl part flipped upside down and buried. The idea is to capture the demon from under the ground. And if there are two bowls, they're both would be inverted upside down. If you need a double protection at your threshold, because the demons are believed to enter your threshold. Judaism does a lot, as we know from Passover, and other kinds. Judaism does a lot with protecting the doorways, right? Or there's images or there's signs next to the doorway for protection, right? Or the name of God. There's many different customs, and incantation bowls happen to be one of them. There are the famous Nippur bowls. These are Jewish incantation texts. They have discovered 40 of these bowls, 40. That's a lot of these, just in one site. 26 mention Lilith. Yes, mention Lilith. And at least 3 of these bowls contain actually sketches of Lilith. And these date from around 600 BCE. I'm sorry, CE, right? 600 CE. Although some people said it was earlier, 500 CE. They were used mostly by Jews in the poor region, and they're to fight against diseases. Lilith was oftentimes believed to attack women in childbirth. In fact, they would attack women in different states that Lilith do. Different states. For example, going through puberty, they would attack when they're going through menstruation. They would attack. They would also, of course, attack in the hours of childbirth and after the newborn baby is born, especially vulnerable. And so what will happen is many of these bowls would fight against Lilith. I'll just read one of the texts so you have an example. Actually does this one text. Lilith does appear naked and wingless with loose, long hair, and she has chained ankles and prominent breasts and strongly marked genitalia. So here we have it. And so the text says as follows. It says, "You are bound and sealed, all you demons and devils and Liliths, by the hard and strong and mighty powerful bond with which are tied Sisson and Sisson, the evil Lilith who causes the hearts of men to go astray, and appoints in the dream of the night and in the vision of the day, who burns and casts down with nightmare, attacks and kills children, boys and girls. She is conquered and sealed away from the house and from the threshold of Ahram Gushap, son of Ishtar Nahid, by the talisman of Metatron, the great prince who is called the great healer of mercy, who vanquished demons and devils, black arts and mighty spells, and keeps them away from the house and threshold of Madam Gushnap, the son of Ishtar Nahid. Amen, amen, Silah. Vanquished are all the black arts and mighty spells, vanquished the bewitching women. They and their witchery and their spells, their curses, and their invocations are kept away from the 4 walls of the house of Mahran Gushnap, the son of Ishtar Nahid. Vanquished and trampled down are the bewitching women, vanquished on earth and vanquished in heavens. Vanquished are the constellations and stars. Bound are the works of their hands. Amen, amen, Selah. It's pretty long. This is all written out, these bowls going on and on. It's kind of repetitive. There you have it. Now let's move on to the Talmud. All right. So the Talmud is an overarching term for both the Mishnah, compiled around 230, as we said, and the Gemara, compiled around 500 CE. And of course, the word means instruction or learning. All right. These are very important to modern Judaism today. And of course, the rabbis, they define forbidden forms of magic, but they don't issue too much of a flat out condemnation. In fact, they are maybe a little too aware how closely their ideas connect or parallel to certain magical practices. But they do say, like, for example, that the laws of magic or kishuf, like those of the Sabbaths, distinguish between magic, illegal and punishable, illegal and yet not punishable, and permitted. So you have, basically, you have magic that are forbidden and illegal, magic that's illegal but not forbidden, and then magic that is permitted. The Talmud encompasses specific teachings involving demonology, and legends, and myths that you can see throughout this work. The Talmud's teachings are entwined with magical practices and superstition. So you do have, and so you do have this. So the same treatise goes on to give like directions for seeing demons by burning portions of a black cat, placing ashes on one's eyes. You'll see this in different places. The Talmud also explains that devils inhabit the water spouts of houses and are fond out of drinking out of water jugs, as we know from section 2:7. So watch out for those water jugs. In fact, there's another section of the Babylonian Talmud that has warnings about demon sex, and in fact, it says the rabbis taught, coming from a privy or outdoor toilet, a man should not have sexual intercourse until he has waited long enough to walk half a mile, because the demon of the privy is with him for that time. If he does, his children will have epilepsy. So basically, what they're trying to tell you here is that, according to the Babylonian Talmud, if you go to an outdoor toilet, there's a demon with you for at least a half a mile. Okay, so you gotta wait. You gotta make sure you gotta make steps. So and make sure that you walk more than half a mile. Stay away from that demon, right? How about this one? To heal his flesh, a Jew should take dust that lies within the shadow of an outdoor toilet, mix it with honey, and eat it. I don't think I want to do that. I don't know. Do you? So you have to heal the disease of pleurisy. They should take the excrement of a white dog and knead it with balsam. But if he can possibly avoid it, he should not eat the dog's excrement, as it loosens the limbs. So watch out for that. All right. You actually have Talmudic amulets that were very much popular at that time, especially when called the preserving stone, which was believed to prevent miscarriage. And so there you have that. There's of course there is also the story of Solomon. Becomes even more complex in regards to his associations with magic, and one of them, of course, is mentioned in the Babylonian Talmud, the story of Solomon with the demon Asmodeus. And I won't go through the whole story, but once again, it's an expansion of Solomonic magic that is in this particular form of the Talmud, of the Babylonian Talmud. So there you go. And then the large section here. I want to make sure we get a little bit further. Then you have Joshua ben Levi, a 3rd century Talmudic sage, who basically was a confidant of the angelic Elijah, who was his a magick, Maggid, which is a spirit guide. It literally means revealer and is connected not only to various Jewish sages and prophets, but other angels related to visions and dreams. And so Elijah was a very popular one. So there you have it. Accordingly, we have through Elijah, Joseph ben Levi. It happens. The idea is it said that he had the power to make it rain and was able to interpret dreams. He also gave advice on how to avoid getting the angel of death's attention. So Joshua is going to say, this is how. So if you don't want to die, listen up. Okay, so this is how you are going to avoid the attention of the angel of death. You guys take down your notes. Here it is. So first of all, do not take a shirt directly from someone's hand in the morning. Okay, so if it's morning, okay, you guys do not take a shirt directly from someone's hand in the morning. So if somebody in the morning says, hey honey, here's my shirt, just go, no, I can't take your shirt. It's morning. Wait till the afternoon. No, I don't want to die. Okay. The next one is, don't have someone who has not washed their hands wash your hands. That does make sense because of diseases, transfer. I can see that, right? And finally, do not stand too close to a woman who has just finished preparing a corpse. So, don't hang around women who are morticians right after. Make sure they clean themselves afterwards, because otherwise, death is looking your direction and it's winking. So beware. Okay. According to many within the Jewish community from the first century on, Jesus was actually considered a great magician. And you have Jewish writings that do mention that Jewish was understood as a magician. You have sections of the Mishnah that refers to this idea. There's a few things that happen. Like, for example, you can see where there's this understanding or misunderstanding. For example, in John 9:6-7, Jesus says, after saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. It says, go, he told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went ahead and washed and came back home seeing. This idea of using the mud with the saliva, with the power of God, and onto the eyes was looked at as magical. Paul the Apostle was also looked at as a magician in ancient times, especially when he's in Ephesus. He had aprons, and they are taking away his aprons and feeling that they're being healed by the power of the apron itself, right? So there you have that. So anyway, Jewish magic became so popular. I mean, I'm telling you, Jewish magic is not just a small idea. Jewish magic became so popular that it spread to Christians and became a popular fad amongst Christians throughout Christendom. And so what's going to happen is a famous late 4th century church father by the name of John Chrysostom told how many Christians in Antioch, where he lived for a while, believed in Jewish charms, incantations, and amulets, he said, and how they could heal them. He says this in his work concerning the Jews, chapter 8, verses 5-7. In fact, John himself admits that Jewish magic seemed to actually work. But John Chrysostom advised those not to do Jewish magic. He told the Christians of his city that it was better for them and their souls to refuse these magical remedies, even if they were proven to be effective. And yet, at the same time, they had problems with this, because what happens is that often is mentioned how the sign of the cross perform like a talisman against evil, instructing them to make the signs of the cross in their brow. So what's the difference between the sign of the cross and the other? But this is not part of, even though John Chrysostom definitely has anti-Semitic tendencies, this is still part of the culture itself, because we have Jewish writings from that time talking about Jewish magic, and we have examples of Jewish magic and amulets all throughout Syria and Egypt and these other places. So this is not necessarily a demonizing aspect. It's just simply saying what was a popular conception, and it was true as evidence from within the Jewish community itself. And once again, remember, the idea of magic was not necessarily a negative thing. It was not necessarily negative. In fact, we went through the reasons why in detail. Okay, so by the time we get to the late Roman era, I want to say a few more things, but let's keep on going a little bit longer. So basically, you have, when it comes to Jewish magic, right, there are some major ideas, and that is that there's special power within the names of God. There is special power in the words and phrases that God speaks in the Torah, right? And that the Hebrew letters themselves have power. And so what will happen is that, according to many Jews within popular culture, spells can be used in a magical sense in which it is believed that you are manipulating the natural world, or it can be used in a thirdic sense, where it is believed that God is giving you this power because you're asking for this power and enacting upon it. So you're not doing anything manipulative, you're doing it with God's permission. And this, in a sense, is thirding, which is also used by the Neoplatonists as well, Iamblichus, as well as others. So there you have that. And so that's important to remember, because we're not dealing with a modern conception. We're dealing with an ancient conception, right? So incantation phrases are, in a sense, a form of heightened speech, like poetry, right? And so there needs to have some kind of repetition and rhythm and reversal, and has power to it. There's interesting, because they also have, what's used quite a bit is what's called backwards reduction. And so what happens is this: in order to get rid of something, you start to say what the word of what is bothering you, and then you say it with one letter less, and then with one letter less, with one letter less, and as a result, that will go away. Okay, so for example, the Pishem 112b from the Talmud. So you have this idea of blindness, right? So you have the word is shabri, right? And the idea is, my mother has cautioned me against shabri. But with each repetition, the speaker should reduce one letter from the word. So shabri, shabur, shabri, shaba, shab, sha, sh. And as you say each word one letter less, the idea is magically it is diminished, or it goes away. And this is popular within Jewish magic, although you do have some gibberish. But as we know now from the context of the early Hebrew Bible, usually Jewish magic does not, sometimes does not have gibberish, because again, words have to mean something, right? They have to say something and not just be nonsensical. There are examples of that as it mixes with the popular culture at that time, right? So, and of course, you do have holy names being used quite a bit. And this, of course, brings us slowly but surely into the Middle Ages. And there's quite a few changes at that time. But before we go there, we're not going to go there because we're going to shorten up. I want to mention also that Jewish magic sometimes uses what is the hexagram shapes. This is a six angle or six cornered shape used as a talisman against evil, right? This is like the first, for example, the six-pointed Magen David or Star of David was used frequently for magical protection rituals. And of course, this is the modern symbol of Judaism today. And as I said before, this talk is on ancient Jewish magic. So that's the context of this talk. So there is a stone bearing a hexagram from the arch of a 3rd to 4th century synagogue in Galilee. Originally, the hexagon may have been employed as an architectural ornament, but eventually it is used more often. Like, for example, in the synagogue of Capernaum, right? Or in Jewish tombstones from southern Italy, Apula, for example. And eventually it has significance. It becomes a seal along with a pentagram of protection. And so it is a protection symbol meant to stamp or put in order to not be harmed by evil spirits, and will eventually be connected to the legend of King Solomon, as well as the signet rings, right? And then, of course, there are other aspects from here, right? So there you have it. This is, again, ancient Jewish magic. We can go into, if you're interested, I do have materials that goes into medieval magic, which is even more involved. And that's a whole nother topic for another time. But I hope you enjoyed this investigation into perspectives of ancient magic, going from the Hebrew Bible into the period of time of the Talmud, and at least into the 6th or 7th centuries. I would love to tell you more about medieval Jewish magic too. And I actually have the notes right here, but I don't want to scare anybody away. And that would be another topic. Although I do want to say that one work, I will just say this, that it gives you details of how to do a magic ritual, how to do purification. And it says you have to at least have 3 companions. And if you can't have 3 companions, I'm not joking, a dog will do. And it tells you how you anoint and perfume the dog for the rituals. You can't make this up. If you're interested, I'll tell you the source. Good stuff. Until later, I have a great evening and many blessings to you, and have a great night. There you go. There we go. Yeah, lots of sources. I have here the Sefer Raziel, which is from the 13th century. That's pretty fascinating. I have the Key of Solomon here. I recommend the Key of Solomon if you're interested. That has a lot of materials. That's from the 14th or the 15th centuries. And so there you have that. Yeah, and so, okay, so the question was asked, are you Jewish? And the answer is, I grew up within a Jewish context, and so a Christian and a Jewish context. I was raised by a Holocaust survivor, partly. So I celebrated Jewish holidays. And I've had a chance of go. So no, yes. So if that makes any sense. So, in my home, if that, right. So, and of course the problem is that we have to understand that, yes, I'm a Gentile, an outsider in that sense. But I do know for a fact that there are still communities that that do still practice magical aspects within even a modern context. So yeah, so there you have that. So any other questions, right? So when it comes to Judaism, of course, I have a great love of Jewish culture, and a great love of Judaism. and spent much time studying ancient Judaism. But Hebrew is not my language. I do know Aramaic, and I, of course, know Greek, and I know Latin. So those are my language areas, and of course, obviously German and French. But I did do a study in Hellenistic Judaism using the Septuagint in the original Greek. So that's where that expertise goes in. So, I'm not laughing at the historical context. So absolutely not. I'm laughing as somebody who feels it and understands it, and at the same time, the idea of magic from its context is an interesting thing because it does reveal how we are as humans and what we need and what we want, and also sometimes the secret desires of our heart, and sometimes those desires are not good. So it is any kind of magic, whether it's Jewish, whether it's pagan, whether it is Christian. There's a lot of Christian magic. It reveals so much about popular culture and popular perceptions. And I'll have to say that it is very much part of that laughter is a good thing. In fact, one interesting thing that I've learned is, having spent so much time within a Jewish context, is the joy of laughter and discussion and argument, conversations that are important. And laughter is a big part of Jewish life. It really is. The joy of laughter and laughing at life itself. In fact, it's said that recent surveys have said of all the religions, it says that those in Judaism seem to be the happiest. So there it is. And I think that also you have an acceptance of outsiders as long as there is respect and love for them. So there you have it. So, well, that's, everybody is entitled to an opinion. And so there you have it. All right, any other questions? No? All right, so, okay, so there you have it, right? Talks on ancient Judaism, and I will close it off for tonight. And I think next time we will be talking about, I think Blavatsky, is that right? So Blavatsky for next time. Yeah, thank you, Jack. Andrew, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you too.
I am